Sometimes the most powerful response isn't words, explanations, or chasing. It's quiet, it's calm, it's stepping back and letting your absence speak for itself. Because when you erase him quietly, it's not about hurting him. It's about showing that your peace, your self-respect, and your life don't depend on his approval. Silence has a way of revealing the truth faster than any conversation ever could. Silence is one of the most underestimated tools in relationships, yet it often communicates far more than words ever could. Many people feel the need to explain themselves, justify their boundaries, or defend their choices, thinking that if they say enough, the other person will understand. But in reality, constant words often dilute the message. They provide excuses, create loopholes for confusion, and allow someone else's ego to maintain its comfort without accountability. Silence, on the other hand, cuts straight through the noise. It's direct, unambiguous, and most importantly, it's unreactive. When you step back and choose quiet, you immediately change the dynamic. Instead of reacting to every slight, every mixed signal, and every uncertain interaction, you place the power in your own hands. You stop negotiating for attention and validation that may never come. By simply removing yourself from the constant cycle of communication, you create space for both clarity and reflection, for him, for you, and for the situation as a whole. Your silence isn't about punishment, it's about letting truth reveal itself naturally. Words are often a tool for control, whether intentional or not. When we speak too much in an attempt to influence someone else's feelings or actions, we give them the ability to respond, manipulate, or misinterpret. Silence removes that ability. It strips the other person of their usual way of avoiding consequences, of hiding behind excuses, and of maintaining emotional dominance. The moment you stop engaging, you take away the emotional leverage they may have unknowingly relied on. In its place, the reality of their behavior stands naked. Another powerful aspect of silence is its ability to provoke awareness without aggression. When you're quiet, you're not shouting or pointing fingers. You're simply existing in a way that is whole and grounded. The absence of your energy becomes noticeable. It highlights what was once taken for granted. The very thing that may have seemed ordinary, your attention, your presence, your care, suddenly becomes significant precisely because it's no longer available. And that significance is not forced. It emerges naturally. Silence also protects your own emotional state. Engaging in endless explanations or debates can be draining, leaving you exhausted and frustrated, while often changing nothing. By remaining quiet, you preserve your mental clarity, your peace, and your self-respect. You no longer tie your happiness to the whims of someone else or the hope that they will suddenly see what they've been missing. Instead, you reclaim your energy, your time, and your power, and in doing so, you model the very standard of respect and consideration that should have been present all along. Moreover, silence allows for a kind of mirror effect. It gives the other person a chance to observe their own behavior without interference. They may begin to recognize patterns, inconsistencies, or moments of negligence that previously went unnoticed. Silence forces introspection in a way that arguments or explanations rarely do. It isn't manipulative, it simply creates the conditions for awareness. The ego, when deprived of its usual triggers, your reactions, your engagement, begins to confront itself. Ultimately, choosing silence communicates confidence, maturity, and emotional intelligence. It shows that your worth is not contingent on constant validation or explanation. It demonstrates that you can hold space for yourself without needing to justify your boundaries. Silence allows your actions, or in this case, your deliberate absence, to carry more weight than words ever could. It is both an act of self-preservation and a subtle, undeniable statement of power, revealing the truth about the connection, about him, and most importantly, about your own strength. Detachment is one of the most revealing and transformative tools in any relationship, yet it is often misunderstood. Many people confuse detachment with coldness, distance, or indifference. In reality, detachment is a conscious choice to stop being emotionally available in ways that aren't reciprocated. It's a way of creating space to see patterns clearly without the distortion of constant engagement. When you stop providing constant access, you begin to notice behaviors and intentions that were previously hidden behind familiarity, excuses, or the comfort of routine. The first step in understanding detachment is realizing that access is a privilege, not a right. Being available to someone should not come at the cost of your own peace or self-respect. Far too often, people give unlimited attention, emotional labor, and energy to someone who isn't showing up fully in return. This imbalance creates an unspoken hierarchy where one person's ego thrives on convenience, while the other's self-worth erodes quietly over time. By detaching, you shift that balance. You make it clear, both to yourself and to the other person, that connection is mutual, not something you sustain alone. Detachment is powerful because it reveals true intention. When someone is genuinely invested, they will respond to your absence with clarity and effort. They will step up, communicate sincerely, and demonstrate that they value the connection. On the other hand, someone who has been enjoying comfort without commitment will either withdraw further or remain indifferent. Silence and detachment act as a filter, separating genuine engagement from superficial involvement. You don't need to demand answers or explanations. Detachment allows behavior to speak for itself. Emotionally, detachment also changes the way you experience the relationship. When you are constantly available, your thoughts and energy are often preoccupied with the other person, reading into messages, anticipating responses, and trying to manage the emotional climate. Detachment interrupts that cycle. It allows you to reclaim your focus, your clarity, and your emotional equilibrium. In doing so, you become less reactive and more discerning, able to see the situation for what it truly is rather than what you hope it to be. Detachment doesn't mean ignoring someone out of spite or attempting to manipulate their feelings. It's about consciously choosing not to overextend your emotional availability for someone who doesn't match it. It's about setting a standard of self-respect that communicates without words that your presence is not a given. This subtle shift often creates tension for the other person, but that tension is not the goal. It is simply a reflection of the reality they have been avoiding. The discomfort they feel is the same one you previously endured when you were overinvested only now. It belongs to them. Another important aspect of detachment is that it fosters personal growth. You begin to see patterns in relationships that you may have ignored before. You recognize the difference between consistent effort and sporadic attention, between genuine care and convenience. Detachment allows you to build emotional resilience, to define your worth independently of someone else's behavior, and to cultivate confidence in your ability to navigate relationships on your own terms. Ultimately, detachment is about alignment and clarity. It aligns your energy with what is reciprocal and meaningful, and it reveals the truth about the other person's intentions without manipulation or confrontation. It is a tool of empowerment, teaching you that the most valuable connection you can have is with yourself first. By detaching, you not only protect your peace, but also create a dynamic where only genuine engagement is rewarded, and superficiality is naturally filtered out. In this way, detachment is both a shield and a mirror, protecting your worth while reflecting the reality of the relationship in sharp, undeniable clarity. Ego thrives on reaction. It feeds on the tension created when someone tries to manipulate, provoke, or test boundaries. When you respond to every slight, every inconsistency, or every emotional game, you are essentially providing fuel for that ego. It grows stronger because it knows it can elicit a reaction from you, and in doing so, it maintains its sense of control. The more you chase, explain, or justify yourself, the more it cements its power. The antidote to this is calmness, deliberate, composed, unshakable calmness that removes the usual triggers an ego relies on. Remaining calm in the face of inconsistency is not about suppressing feelings or ignoring your own needs. It's about choosing to respond from a place of self-respect rather than emotional reactivity. When you maintain composure, you shift the energy from one of chaos to one of stability. The other person no longer has the power to manipulate or destabilize you because you are no longer participating in the usual patterns. Your peace becomes an unspoken boundary that cannot easily be crossed. Silence and calmness together create a subtle but profound shift in dynamics. When you stop reacting, the ego is confronted with a new reality. Its usual strategies no longer work. There are no arguments to engage with, no over-explaining to exploit, no anxiety to feed off. This creates a vacuum that forces reflection. The person who relied on your emotional engagement begins to feel the absence of control. It's a quiet, powerful way of holding space for yourself while simultaneously revealing the reality of their intentions. Calmness also communicates confidence without words. A composed demeanor signals that you are grounded, self-sufficient, and emotionally mature. It tells the other person that your sense of worth is not dependent on their validation or attention. This alone can destabilize an ego that thrives on eliciting reactions. It's a subtle but undeniable message. You are not easily shaken, and you will not compromise your peace for the sake of temporary engagement. The effect of calmness is amplified when paired with deliberate absence. Not over-explaining or chasing, someone sends a message that is far stronger than words. It highlights the difference between genuine interest and convenience, between effort and entitlement. When someone realizes that your engagement is no longer automatic, they are forced to confront their own behavior. The absence of reaction becomes a mirror, reflecting back the truth of their actions. Importantly, calmness is empowering because it protects you. Emotional reactivity often leads to exhaustion, frustration, and erosion of self-esteem. By choosing to remain composed, you preserve your energy and emotional clarity. You are no longer giving away your power in an attempt to manage someone else's ego or secure their attention. Instead, you maintain autonomy and set a standard for how you expect to be treated. Ego cannot withstand consistent composure. When a person is used to controlling through emotional volatility, calmness disarms them. They may try harder to provoke a response, but repeated exposure to unshakable composure teaches them that their usual strategies no longer work. Over time, this forces a confrontation with their own behavior, their own intentions, and their own inability to manipulate or control what they cannot reach. Ultimately, calmness is not passive. It is a deliberate, active form of power. It allows you to reclaim authority over your own emotional state while revealing the reality of someone else's character. By refusing to react, you remove the ego's fuel and replace chaos with clarity. The more composed and quiet you remain, the more the truth becomes undeniable. Strength and peace are far more attractive and influential than any argument, chase, or drama ever could. Respecting yourself first is the cornerstone of any healthy relationship. Yet it's often the most overlooked principle. Many people believe that love or connection is about sacrifice, compromise, or enduring discomfort for the sake of the other person. While compromise has its place, self-respect is non-negotiable. When you erase someone quietly, when you stop over-explaining or chasing, the first person who benefits is you. You establish boundaries that protect your energy, honor your standards, and communicate, without words, that your presence is not something to be taken lightly. Choosing self-respect begins with understanding your own worth. It's easy to get caught in the hope that someone will suddenly realize what they've lost, or that persistence will eventually inspire change. But overinvesting in someone who doesn't fully match your effort diminishes your value in your own eyes. Respecting yourself means refusing to lower your standards or negotiate your peace in exchange for someone else's attention. It's about aligning your actions with your principles, not your anxieties or desires for validation. Self-respect also shifts the power dynamic in ways that are often subtle but profound. When you stop over-explaining, apologizing unnecessarily, or bending yourself to be understood, you place the responsibility back on the other person. You are no longer carrying the weight of ensuring they see your worth. This is not about manipulation, it's about clarity and fairness. It allows the other person to show up fully or step away, and it removes the constant uncertainty that erodes confidence and self-esteem. Erasing someone quietly communicates strength more effectively than confrontation. Words can sometimes be dismissed, argued against, or ignored. Actions, or in this case, deliberate absence, speak volumes. When you respect yourself enough to withdraw from a situation that isn't reciprocated, you demonstrate that your emotional presence is valuable. That demonstration has a double effect. It preserves your dignity and subtly reveals to the other person the consequences of taking your energy for granted. Another critical aspect of self-respect is emotional independence. By prioritizing your own standards and boundaries, you stop tying your self-worth to someone else's reactions. You no longer depend on external validation to feel secure. This independence is magnetic. It signals maturity, confidence, and stability, qualities that cannot be faked or manufactured. Someone who truly values you will notice this calm assurance, while someone who does not will inevitably drift away. Either outcome reinforces the importance of your choice to respect yourself first. Self-respect also fosters internal clarity. When you step back quietly, free from the need to argue, explain, or persuade, you gain perspective. You can observe patterns, notice inconsistencies, and make decisions based on reality rather than hope or projection. This clarity is invaluable. It helps you recognize the difference between genuine connection and convenience, between someone willing to invest effort and someone content with taking it for granted. Ultimately, erasing someone quietly while respecting yourself is not an act of spite, it is an act of empowerment. It teaches you that your presence is a privilege, not an entitlement. It shows that you do not need constant external validation to feel complete or confident. By choosing yourself first, you set a standard that elevates every interaction you have moving forward. The strength and dignity gained through self-respect are lasting, undeniable, and far more powerful than any argument, chase, or drama could ever be. In this way, self-respect becomes both a shield and a declaration. It protects your peace and silently commands recognition for the value you inherently possess. Absence has a way of revealing what words cannot. When you stop being constantly available, when you withdraw quietly from someone who has relied on your presence without full investment, the impact is immediate and undeniable. Most people underestimate how much they take for granted until it is no longer there. The little things you offered, your attention, your understanding, your emotional support suddenly become visible in their absence. This is not about revenge or manipulation. It's about allowing reality to speak for itself and letting the consequences of neglect or inconsistency become clear. The power of absence lies in its subtlety. It doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it doesn't create drama. Instead, it creates space for reflection. The other person begins to notice what was once ordinary but is now missing. That absence forces them to confront questions they may have ignored. How consistent was my effort? How much did I rely on her presence without reciprocating? Am I truly invested, or was I just enjoying convenience? Silence acts as a mirror, reflecting back the patterns and choices that may have previously gone unnoticed. Absence also shifts the energy in a way that words cannot. When you stop explaining yourself, stop over-engaging, and stop chasing, you take the responsibility of perception away from yourself and place it back on the other person. They are now accountable for their own understanding and their own behavior. This accountability cannot exist when your presence is guaranteed, because comfort can easily mask inconsistency. Removing that comfort forces recognition. It forces the person to confront the reality of what their actions, or lack thereof, mean. At the same time, the absence is liberating for you. It gives you space to reclaim your emotional and mental energy, to observe the situation without being entangled in constant anxiety or hope. You stop overanalyzing messages, waiting for signs, or negotiating your peace in small, exhausting ways. That space restores clarity and self-respect. It allows you to measure the relationship based on reality rather than your desire or fear. In this way, absence is a tool for both observation and preservation. The moment someone notices your absence, they may feel a range of emotions: confusion, regret, longing, or even fear of loss. But those feelings are not the point. The point is the insight they provoke. They highlight the importance of effort, commitment, and appreciation. Someone who values you will respond with intentionality. Someone who does not will drift further away. Both outcomes are clarifying. Both outcomes allow you to see the truth without argument or confrontation. Absence simply accelerates that clarity. Moreover, absence strengthens your boundaries. It communicates that your time, energy, and emotional labor are not unlimited resources to be taken for granted. By quietly removing yourself, you signal that connection is conditional on mutual respect and effort. This is an unspoken lesson that cannot be learned through explanations or repeated chances alone. It is learned through experience, the direct experience of consequence, reflection, and introspection. Ultimately, absence is a tool for truth and empowerment. It allows you to step back, preserve your peace, and observe reality without compromise. It makes the invisible visible, and it teaches both parties what was once taken for granted. By embracing absence with calm confidence, you assert the value of your presence without words, without drama, and without desperation. In doing so, you reclaim control, protect your dignity, and create conditions in which clarity naturally emerges, and respect is either earned or exposed as lacking. The lesson of silence and absence is ultimately for you, long before it is for anyone else. Many people measure success in relationships by the reactions of the other person, hoping for regret, apology, or a change in behavior. But true empowerment comes from shifting that focus inward. The real victory lies not in whether he notices, reaches out, or changes, but in what you learn about yourself when you choose boundaries, peace, and self-respect over chasing validation. Every act of quiet withdrawal is a mirror, reflecting your own strength, resilience, and emotional intelligence. When you step back and allow silence to take its course, discomfort naturally arises. You may feel the urge to explain yourself, to soften boundaries, or to check if your absence is noticed. That discomfort is not a weakness. It is a signal that you are growing. It forces you to confront your own reliance on external validation and to ask whether your self-worth is contingent on someone else's attention. Sitting with that tension without giving in is a profound exercise in self-trust. It teaches that your emotional stability does not need to depend on another person's choices or ego. This internal lesson reshapes your understanding of relationships. You begin to see clearly who is genuinely invested and who is only present for convenience. You start to recognize patterns that you might have ignored before, and you stop negotiating for connection with someone who cannot meet you halfway. In this way, silence acts as both a teacher and a filter. It filters out inconsistency while teaching resilience, patience, and self-awareness. The insights gained are invaluable because they strengthen your ability to navigate future relationships with discernment and confidence. Even if the other person returns, the power lies not in their reaction, but in your growth. By the time they come back, you are no longer the same person who tolerated ambiguity or inconsistency. Your boundaries are firmer, your self-respect is stronger, and your sense of self is independent of their actions. This transforms the dynamic entirely. You no longer approach the connection from a place of need or hope. You approach it from a place of choice and confidence. The relationship, if it continues, is now based on genuine mutual effort rather than one-sided accommodation. And if the other person never returns, the lesson is just as valuable. You learn that absence does not equate to loss, it equates to clarity. You discover that your life, your peace, and your happiness are not contingent on anyone else's presence. The experience reinforces that self-worth is internal, not conditional, and that emotional independence is not only possible but empowering. Through silence, you cultivate the knowledge that you can survive absence without compromise, and that your boundaries are non-negotiable. The process also sharpens intuition. After experiencing the power of quiet withdrawal, you become more attuned to early warning signs of imbalance in future connections. You notice inconsistency, half-hearted effort, or unclear intentions sooner, and you no longer ignore them. That awareness is a direct result of having practiced self-respect and observed consequences without interference. It allows you to act with greater discernment, choosing relationships that align with your standards rather than settling for less. Ultimately, the sixth keynote emphasizes that silence and boundaries teach the most powerful lessons to the person who sets them. While the other person may or may not learn from your absence, you invariably learn about your own strength, your resilience, and your capacity to uphold your worth. The real victory is internal, cultivating independence, clarity, and confidence that no external outcome can diminish. By prioritizing yourself first, you ensure that growth, empowerment, and self-respect are yours, regardless of anyone else's choices. In the end, erasing him quietly isn't about revenge or proving a point. It's about reclaiming your peace, your power, and your self-respect. Silence doesn't beg, chase, or explain. It simply reveals truth, both about him and about you. When you honor your boundaries and choose yourself first, you gain clarity, confidence, and freedom that no reaction, apology, or return can ever take away.